Morning once more. Thank you very much for having me this morning. Um, as you know, not long after I became the Minister of Education, and we got to work in understanding the problems of education in Nigeria. And we also know, as a matter of fact, that a lot of the problems we have, especially with the youth, have to do with education. Poor learning, poverty of learning, unemployment and underemployment, and worst of all, lack of value on education. You know, the youth, the parents, I don't see much value in the qualifications they obtain from various institutions, either at the pre-university level or at the tertiary education level. And so our responsibility, and of course we all know about the millions and millions of the youth out there who are not in school. Now, we cannot go into the 21st century with this setup. And of course, as you also know, the president is hugely concerned about the position of our youth, and then having an education system which is suitable for our present day needs is seen as the mechanisms or pathway through which this youth can be productively engaged and empowered for themselves and as well as for the good of the country. And so what we did is to x-ray the entire system. And then we saw the problem as having an education system that can address or that must indeed address the problems of quality in the education system, and then having an education system which is functional, which people can see what can facilitate their being useful to themselves and the society. So that's how we now developed a national skills framework, and because we now saw skilling after a series of consultations and conferences and engagement of experts and our own experiences, we now came up with a national skills framework to rejig that level of education. Because as again, which is terribly important, is that barely 35% of the students who finish secondary school, indeed primary who finish basic education, proceed to tertiary education. So we are left with about 65% of the population not in education, not in any training, and practically doing nothing, not engaging with the economy. And then, of course, some of them becoming even security concerns to the country. So that's why we all now agreed, like most countries in the world now, that we need to have an education system that can address some of these concerns about quality of the education, about a functional education system where students who finish from various levels of education can acquire some occupational qualifications and competencies that they can be on them by themselves, or they can be engaged by the employers and by the industry. And so after developing the national skills framework, of course, you can only implement it through a curriculum. And so we got the RDC which is the agency of the ministry responsible for curriculum work, to put that framework into a curriculum. And so that's what they did. And so for the last 10 months, 11 months, this is what we worked on. And we have adopted, of course, as you have put out in the background information, the program has all those subjects, the general subjects, and then the specialized occupational subjects, which schools across the country, both in the private sector and the public sector, are expected and indeed required to implement from January this year. And it is our expectation that when we implement these programs, we should be able to get what we want. And now, while we implement the basic education from January, we are also simultaneously working on the program for secondary schools, so that from September, October next year, we will have the program for secondary schools in place. Now, to get buyers, stakeholders, necessary relevant stakeholders to implement this program, and knowing that implementation is a national project, we now set up, and of course, again, to knowing the time frame we have or we don't have, we now set up a special task force, or if you want, a task team that will ensure the rapid and smooth, seamless implementation of this program. After we are going to present it to the public, hopefully next month, as soon as we are ready with it in the book form, which the NERDC is working on at the moment. And then we'll put in place mechanism for monitoring and evaluation and support. And then alongside with it, we will have a scheme for teacher support and development to get acquainted with the program, because the teachers are the drivers of the program. They are the ones who will implement it. And so they will need to retune and retrain in the new program. And so, as I said, we have put in place now established a special committee chaired an interdepartmental, interagency committee that will steer the implementation of the program. And this committee is chaired by the Registrar of JAM, Professor Oloede, a person that we all know is a very serious-minded person. You can sleep with your two eyes when you give him a responsibility. So it's an interagency committee, because as you know, a number of agents of the Ministry of Federal Ministry of Education involved, commissioners of education, the entire education of the states are involved. Of course, they are part of the NCE, and the state governments who own most of the schools together with the private sector are involved. And there will also be a lot of sensitization before and even after the implementation. And so these are what we have put in place to secure the education system for our country.
Much, Professor